Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another awesome figure from Mattel to take a look at. It's nice to actually get flooded with new Mattel figures every once in a while, and that is exactly what has been happening now over the past few weeks. We have just received a ton of Mattel figures showing up in Targets and now Walmart as well. A lot of the figures that are supposed to be at Walmart, however, are still not present, but we do have a lot of pegs awaiting figures, but one that has actually started to show up quite a bit throughout some Walmarts, but not all, would be this, which if you are familiar with obviously the thumbnail and the title of the video, but also if you're just familiar with what figures have been showing up in what stores, you will know that this is the Extreme Damage Indominus Rex, and this is one that I was really quite excited about because I really liked the Extreme Damage Tyrannosaurus. I thought that figure was really cool, and when I had heard they were making an Extreme Damage Indominus, it was definitely a fun idea on the part of Mattel, and pretty cool to finally have a second variant of this Indominus Rex out, because previously we only have one of this style figure, and it'd be fun to actually get a repaint or something like that at some point. But this one looks to be pretty much the same figure as the previous one, except for a new action feature, which we can kind of see right there on the side of the stomach region. And as far as the actual packaging goes, we do have the Extreme Damage logo down here in the corner, as well as Indominus Rex front and center. And then over here, Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, as well as an image there of Toro, and then kind of like some sneak peeks up there at the action features and stuff in the background. As far as the back of the box goes, we have a very large image of the Indominus Rex, and again, quite a few other areas of teases of the action features and stuff of the Indominus. And then down here we actually have an image of the Extreme Damage Tyrannosaurus as well, so that's pretty fun. But this figure is definitely a really exciting one for me. It's, again, something that I'm pretty happy to now officially have in my collection. I was able to snag it off of Walmart.com because it hasn't actually shown up in my store yet. But hopefully sometime soon, which I guess at this point doesn't really matter anymore because I now have it. So let's go ahead, break it out of its box, and take a look at it. So here is our really cool Extreme Damage Indominus Rex, released from the packaging and in all of her glory, and she definitely looks really cool. Again, I'm so happy to have a second variant. This figure came out quite a while ago as far as the original one goes, and it's just been kind of sitting on shelves at my local Target for quite a while, so it is still readily available as far as the original one goes, but it's just kind of been like one of those really, really nice sculpts that didn't get used to its full potential, I feel like, because we get tons of repaints of other figures, and although there is only obviously one Indominus Rex in the film, so you really only have one color scheme, I think personally it would have been fun to get an alternate paint scheme, but I kind of didn't know what they would do to actually create another Indominus aside from, you know, like the minis and the 5-inch basics and stuff like that, and the Colossal. But this is a really cool idea to give us a second version of the Indominus with this kind of battle damage type wound, the Extreme Damage, and I'm definitely excited to check this one out up close. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So as far as the sculpt of our Indominus Rex goes, it definitely appears to be the exact same figure as what we had previously. I honestly cannot pick out anything different with this one compared to the previous release. The paint application and everything still seems the same. Maybe it's not quite as dark as the previous one as far as like that grayish coloration up here on the top, but honestly I don't think there's much of a difference in that aspect either. But one thing that I did notice straight away as soon as I opened this that was a little different from the previous one, aside from the Extreme Damage feature of the figure, is the fact that the neck articulation now allows you to actually pose the figure. Previously, the other one didn't have that ability. It did have neck articulation, but it was part of an action feature, like when you would thrust the dinosaur down and snap its jaws open, the neck went down to grab, you know, whatever it was aiming at. And this one actually allows you to pose the neck a little bit and leave it in place, which is definitely awesome because that really works great as far as creating dioramas and scenes and stuff like that. A better version, I would say, of the Indominus as far as like dinosaur toy photography and things like that goes. But as far as, again, the sculpt, we don't really need to go over the sculpt because we have reviewed this figure in the past. We just basically need to look at what's new with the figure, and that would pretty much be just the action features and maybe some of the articulation. We do also have some really nice paintwork on the figure, though. I will say that we have, again, that, light gray coloration. There is a darker gray that you can see running along the back of the Indominus, which is a really, really subtle darker gray, and I love that addition to the figure because it's just a really nice appearance and a really nice way to give it some alternate color variation while still allowing the Indominus to look like it looks in the film. You also see some nice darker shades of brown here up around the eye and running into the palate and stuff like that. You have a nice orange eye with a black pupil, which is just beautifully placed. There is no sloppiness with that at all. And then you also have like some speckles, which you can see up here on the top of the head. Mattel loves to add their speckles. This one seems to have like a white speckling up here on the head. We don't really see much of a speckling. Oh no, it is actually here. I don't see it much throughout the course of the body, but you can definitely see it here in the thigh region. It is present throughout some areas of the figure. I see it definitely in the hands and everything as well. So the speckling is pretty abundant throughout the course of the figure. We have a mouth that snaps open. The action feature actually here is kind of the same as far as that aspect goes to the previous one where you push the button and it does snap its mouth. I kind of would have enjoyed just an articulated jaw on it, but we did not get that. But you can see the teeth are all painted to perfection, given a nice yellowish coloration, and they are all glossed really nicely as well. Each tooth individually has a really nice gloss coat to it. You can see a beautiful pinkish coloration for the inside of the mouth. Definitely has a really nice textured tongue in there, as usual. And you can just see that the entire thing sports a great gloss coat. Very realistic coloration for the inside of the mouth of the Indominus. Moving down here into the arms, another area that you really couldn't do much with on the previous one would have been the arms, but we can actually articulate the arms because the other one had kind of like a grabbing action feature where the hands would just grab. This one allows you to actually just articulate it, which is super, super cool. I really like that aspect as well of this figure. And then you come back here into the stomach region and you can see that extreme damage area to the figure, which you obviously can tell has a really nice reddish, bloody look to the inside of the figure, and it definitely has a really nice kind of a realistic look as well as a gloss coat added in there so that it really insinuates the blood and the gore of this poor Indominus who apparently has been injured. And we do have a button up here on the top, and when you push that button, on top of getting a really cool Indominus noise, we now have the Indominus in a much healthier state without that damage. So that's kind of like the extreme damage gimmick, the same thing we had on the T-Rex. Didn't work that time. There we go. You can definitely see how that action feature works. Works pretty good. As far as the hands and everything, we don't have paint on the nails of the hands, which is a downside, but we do have paint on the nails of the feet, and those feet look super, super cool. Unfortunately, the dew claw is skipped, which is no surprise, and then as we lead out the length of the tail, you can again see some of that darker gray up here on the back, but then it transitions very smoothly to the lighter gray. There's no real coloration here on the underside or anything like that that I can see. There is the Jurassic Facts app code, though, if you would like to add this to your collection. If we take a look at the opposing side of our Indominus, again, the head sculpt looks really nice. The eye paint is very nicely and precisely placed over here as well. And then if you lead back into the course of the body, actually, there's a little sloppy paint right there. Don't know what that is, but you can again see that extreme damage action feature area back here. Looks a little different compared to what it looked like on the previous side. But it definitely works nicely over here, just like it did on the initial side. But other than that, the Indominus looks pretty much the exact same to me. Nothing else really seems to be too different. So we're going to go ahead and check out the other action feature of the figure right now. So one of the action features that we had on this Indominus with the initial release was a button back here to operate the jaw. So you have some beautiful Indominus noises right there. Absolutely awesome. I really, really love that we can articulate the neck on this one too. That's just such a cool touch on the part of Mattel, and as well as the arms, another area that we can articulate a little bit easier now as opposed to the kind of like action features we had with those areas on the previous release. As far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tail, you are looking at about 23¼ inches, I would say, or about the 59 centimeter mark. Get the camera up here a little bit taller to get a good view of the height, but to the top of the head, you are looking at right around the 11-inch range, or about the 28 centimeter area, roughly, somewhere in that vicinity. And another thing I do want to state that the articulation on this is all the same as the previous release as far as the other areas, minus the neck and then the arms. Of course, we have the arm articulation in both the shoulder and the elbow, and neck articulation, the articulated jaw, which is part of the action feature, but you also have articulation in the hips and the ankles, and that's really about it. There is no other articulation, no tail articulation or anything like that, but I did want to quickly run that by you guys. If you aren't familiar with the previous Indominus, it does sport some really, really nice articulation throughout. But as far as a size comparison goes, there are our usual review comparison suspects, as we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, in comparison to our Extreme Damage Indominus Rex. So you can see that the figure is huge. If you are not familiar with this figure at all, it's a very impressive size figure, like super, super large. One of the biggest Mattel figures that is outside of the colossal range that they have out. So definitely a very nicely sized figure, and you can really see that here with these other figures in comparison. And then for another comparison, we have the original Indominus next to the Extreme Damage Indominus, showing you again that the sizes and everything of the figure are exactly the same. The coloration is exactly the same again, except I feel like the older one might be a slight hint darker back here on the back of the body. And actually the back of the neck doesn't really look like it has any gray to it as far as like the darker gray, but the newer one does have a little bit of darker gray on the back of the neck. You can see that the sculpt is exactly the same, as the quills here are definitely the same. The legs are in the exact same position. The arms look exactly the same, except we can now articulate the arms on the newer one. Everything back here, as far as the tail, you know, it's turned the exact same way. So the figure as a whole is the exact same sculpt, exact same paint job for the most part, but with new action features and a little bit more articulation that we previously didn't have. And then for one more example of the extreme damage from a little bit of a wider shot, definitely works quite nicely, just like it did on the T-Rex. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Extreme Damage Indominus Rex is a really, really cool figure. Again, I loved it the first time around when they had initially released this. It was the best Indominus Rex that we have ever had from a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World toy line. Obviously, it wouldn't have been a Jurassic Park toy line since the Indominus wasn't actually introduced until Jurassic World, but whatever, Andy. Anyway, again, the sculpt was phenomenal back then. It is still phenomenal now, and still, in my opinion, remains the best Indominus that we've had from any Jurassic toy line. Potentially, the Colossal might have been, a little bit better. I'm not sure which one you would prefer, but either way, this is definitely a fantastic figure. The sculpt, again, is really nice, quite screen accurate overall. The paint job looks good on this one as well. Really nice natural coloration as far as the actual application of the paint goes, nicely matching up to the Indominus from Jurassic World. I love the extreme damage action feature of this one, something that, is brand new to this figure. I really enjoy that. It's quite creative and works really well on the figure overall. This one also sports some extra articulation that we did not have on the previous one, with some nice articulation in the neck and as well as the arms, because it does not include the action features that kind of have those articulated areas altered. So it is nice to have a little extra articulation and just have a little extra difference on this one compared to the previous release. The noises of the Indominus are great. I love the noises that it makes. They work perfectly as well and are pretty much the icing on the cake as far as this release goes. Again, it's nothing amazing. It's nothing that you absolutely must drop everything and go buy right now, because it's not an entirely new figure as far as the sculpt goes. But as far as the action features, I really like it, and I think it's definitely something that is worth pursuing and worth picking up. Another really cool release from Mattel, and again, it's absolutely awesome to have a second Indominus Rex now finally released. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to walmart.com, where I purchased mine. It kind of goes in and out of stock, so it is tough to get on there. Otherwise, you could just wait it out, and it should start to show up at Walmarts across the United States very soon. But definitely pick it up if you do in fact encounter it, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.